Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's edition of LSC Transfer Room with myself and Dan. Massive 3 points after just beating Bournemouth there from our three o'clock kickoff today. Felt like a huge victory today, considering the situation with where Arsenal are tomorrow against City, and might not have been the prettiest at times. Had to battle a little bit through the game, but kind of expected that beforehand. But massive 3 points before we get into things, Dan. Just to remind everyone. Go through notifications, make sure you've got everything switched on so you catch up with kind of future content. Like and subscribe for everything on our YouTube and on Twitter and X as well. And jump in for some of our content further down the line as well for future streams. Dan, how are you doing today? First kind of thoughts on the game. We'll just jump straight into it afterwards. How are you feeling?
You just gotta say Liverpool top of the league, Liverpool top of the league, Liverpool top of the league. You just gotta sing it and believe it. Because right now we are 9 points on the same amount of games played to Arsenal, and tomorrow for Arsenal it's a must win, because if they don't win tomorrow, if they draw, if they lose, hopefully they do lose. Which I never thought I would say with them playing City, but even a draw is fine. Then if Liverpool win, the next league game is the derby, and then if we win this game in the derby, I think Arsenal are going to throw it in, because you're not making up 12 points because they don't have games in hand. There's not an opportunity for them to make up points on us until we play in May, and by the time we play in May, it could be a situation where we win the leagues. If we win or draw, the league is over about that point. I think is it match day 37?
Yeah,
Dylan, is when we play. Yeah. So by that point, we'd either be have won it. We'd either have won it, or it's essentially the title deciding game where like Arsenal are like 5 points behind, or so, and it's within that like margin where it could still theoretically go the last day. Yeah, listen, I don't want to hear what anyone says about our transfer policy. Obviously, that transfer payment we made to the PGMLO, according to some Arsenal fans, has really paid off this season. All those years of suffering under the David Coots and having Darren England being the VAR ref during the Tottenham game, which, all fair play to Darren England. The problem wasn't that he got the decision wrong. He said it's not offside. The problem was he didn't understand the call on the field was offside. So he's like, yeah, there's no problem there. It's like all good. And Simon Hooper didn't understand that. So, listen, it was a tough game. We knew it would be a tough game. I was actually surprised it was below 3 goals. I said I didn't see how this game would be below 3 goals scored total. Turns out it was only 2. We wrote a luck at times, with Bournemouth hitting the post twice. Obviously, the goal they scored with Brooks is offside, which, offside goals don't count, regardless of what people think. And, the pin is a pin. You could say it's a soft pin. It's a foul. Sometimes they get calls, sometimes they don't. And obviously, at the end, Kluivert missing that open goal, which, that's just that. If that's in the first 15, I think he scores it. By the time that ball comes to him, it's the 75th, and he's trying to just get his body in position. He doesn't quite get it there as well. Listen, Bournemouth are a good side. They can feel hard done by the result, but this is the difference between where Bournemouth are, a very well coached team, a good manager, a talented squad, obviously players that other clubs are going to be looking at, and where Liverpool are at right now, which is the best team in England and the best team in Europe. I mean, like by all metrics, you can argue that they are that currently at this moment.
Yeah, and you touched on quite a few things there about the game as well. In terms of beforehand, I watched your stream from last night where you were kind of looking ahead to the game, and I saw what you were saying about potentially more than 3 goals. And it felt like beforehand, because they're both transitional attacking teams, it felt like it could just be almost like a basketball game at times, where they kind of come at us for a bit, we come at them for a bit. And when you look at kind of the shots on goal, it almost was that for a little while. There was quite a period where they seemed to have quite a few opportunities, and then we'd kind of go back at them for a little bit. In terms of the game itself, like you said, they are a good team. Let's not kind of underestimate where they are as a team. I think before today they'd only lost 2 at home all season, and I think of the games that they had lost as well, in all of their games this season, I think they'd only conceded, I think it was 7 or 8 goals at home all season. So they're not a team to kind of be underestimated, especially when you go away to the Vitality. They are a decent team down there. So when you look at the people that have lost down there, the people close to us, Arsenal lost there. I know they'll go on about the red card, but they lost there. Nottingham Forest got absolutely smashed there last week as well. I know it was kind of completely different to how they've been playing for other weeks, but it was always going to be a dangerous fixture to go to Bournemouth today. So I think massive credit to Liverpool that they've come through that game unscathed and with a clean sheet in particular. I think you mentioned about kind of parts of the game. I think Alisson today comes out with quite a bit of credit for some of the saves, especially one of the ones late on against Semenyo. And I think in the last couple of minutes with that one that was kind of deflected towards the bottom to the bottom side on the right hand side, to keep that out with only a couple of minutes left, it could have been squeaky bum time at the end if that goes in for the last couple of minutes. But credit to us for kind of seeing that through in massive 3 points, I think, at the end of the day. What are your kind of, do you want to go through some of the game, kind of first half in particular, Dan, and then break it down a little bit?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that anytime you watch Bournemouth play, they're very much a team that plays in 15-minute spurts, and I think you saw it today. You know, the first 15, they really go at us. You know, it's very much they have the advantage, but obviously it's not overwhelming Bournemouth, and Liverpool are having to defend Liverpool are having to defend Bournemouth's attacks and try to play out of their traps. You know, Bournemouth get that first shot off by Semenyo. I think we did a really good job. People will disagree with me. I don't think Trent Alexander-Arnold was phoning it in. I know some people disagree. They think that he's like, his head's not in the game. He's not really focused. Trent's always been a nonchalant player. There have been plenty in recent memory, like, you know, the Brentford game, he played really well. There's plenty of games this season where Trent has come on and he has performed very well defensively and offensively. I think today was just a game, again, like before, where they're overloading Trent, Kirkes, Semenyo. There's always three people on his side giving overlaps, underlaps. They're always looking to pounce on his passes, you know, make sure he doesn't get the ball or get time on the ball. I think Bournemouth start off that very, very well. I think Liverpool really, again, this has been a very fun, yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, do you know when the last time we actually lost after leading at halftime?
Was it Bournemouth when we lost 4-3?
4-3 it was. And actually I had forgot that CHERRIES was in the team at that day. That's when we were up 2-0 at halftime. It went 2-1, then 3-1, and then it came all the way back to 4-3. That's the only time we've lost after leading at halftime. Not drop points, just lost. That's how good we have been mentally since 2016, since that loss under Klopp. That was Klopp's first full season. Yeah, I think the first 15 you see the straight, you see what Bournemouth are good at. You see where Liverpool's, if I say weakness, it's not a weakness. I think you see where teams have game planned for, if you're going to get anything out of this Liverpool side out of a game, you have to try and get it in the first 15. And then, you know, because Fulham did it and got a draw, Newcastle get it in the 25th, and it's actually a worldie. They actually try really hard to get in the first 15, and then we get some control, and then they score after that. Forest, their only really good chance, they score in the first 15. And so that's a lot of teams have the tape on how are you going to attack the Liverpool side, and it's the first 15. Brentford tried it. We did a really good job stuffing it out. And I think what we've done, what you've seen us do a lot, and especially after the United game, I think, is that Gravenberch has pulled a lot more to that right side. So there's that three of Konate or Kwanzaa, Trent, and Grav that are all helping Trent on that side, rather than have Grav drift. Or if Grav goes forward, Dom is back there as well. Yeah, and I think you see that how Bournemouth are a really good side, but they're not, you know, listen, Semenyo's a good player. Someone's going to come in and spend 40-50 million pounds on him. It won't be us. And I think you can see why, because it's those fine margins, those levels. This is why I've always pushed back against this idea that, you know, Liverpool should just sign anybody. You know, there's this belief that this team is missing, like, you know, it's like, oh, we're missing 3 to 4 players. I'm like, where? Your ninth choice defender, your seventh choice center midfielder, and your 7th choice forward. It's like most teams don't even have a 7th choice in those positions. And I think you see today in that first 15 just how much quality Bournemouth have, why Liverpool might be interested in, but also why they may not by that player, interested in monitoring LC. Afterwards, I think we get a hold of the game, and it's interesting. I think that the first time we actually get behind Bournemouth, which we didn't do very well. This is why I don't like Diaz starting as a 9.
Mm-hmm.
We don't stretch the field as much. Actually, I think that's when you saw that second goal with Darwin. The reason why Salah gets that goal is because Darwin has pulled everyone. Yeah, he opens it up so much. And I mean, listen, I keep saying this every stream. I don't know if they're going to keep Darwin Nunez, but I keep stressing that he's not a donkey. Mm-hmm. He is very useful. Obviously, he gets the winner against Brentford. He is not a Rigi. He gives you all the work, all the pace. He's much more effective. He's much more switched on than people give him credit for. And I think today you just see how like a Nunez that like you could see Nunez being like a dominant Solanke there last year, someone that is all action. Solanke didn't score a lot of goals until much later on under Iraola until Iraola got the best out of him. But you just see what he offers. And Diaz, I think, just doesn't give that the same. But the penalty, reason we get that penalty is because we actually have someone running in behind Bournemouth's line. And that was what I think we were missing that first 15 to 30. It's like as much as our general all-around play was, our pressing was, our passing at times, our interchange, we just didn't have that runner in behind.
Yeah, and I was touching on your points about their attacking force as well. I think in terms of like people like Semenyo, they are good players, but they're good players for the level of team that they're currently at. If they're going to kind of step up to that next level where people keep linking into people like us and kind of other teams, then they are going to have in these types of games those moments where you go like Salah for today. For large periods of the day, people will say he wasn't in the game, but the fella's scored 2 goals and he's got us the 3 points that's defeated the Bournemouth today. So that's the kind of differences between the levels of kind of the people that we need in our attack and people, like you said, that might be the backup to our attack, but they're not going to be potentially week in, week out that person we need them to be. And I think you could see that almost with Bournemouth's attack in those first 20 minutes. Even though they were pressing us quite high, they were transitional and kind of creating quite a few chances. But with Evan Nielsen missing today and potentially that person down the middle who's going to finish for them, it never really felt, to me anyway, I don't know how you felt about it, it never really felt from those chances that we were going to go behind. There was a couple of chances where they maybe opened up a little more space than you might like, but it didn't feel like we were being bombarded or potentially going to fall 1-0 behind. And then when we did find our feet in the game and took a little bit more control 25, 30 minutes onwards, won the penalty, like you said, and then from there, the first half, they did still create a couple more chances, but again, it never really felt like siege mentality like I thought it might feel when we go to Bournemouth today, based on how they do attack against some teams at home. But how did you kind of feel in terms of that?
I think the only time I feel like we conceded is when we conceded the goal with Kirkes offside, and it's only because that's a goal that is, if there is a goal that Liverpool, if there is a type of goal that Liverpool have had issues defending, it's balls from the left wing or right across to the opposite side, someone coming in the end on it. Now it's a difficult finish, and Brooks does very, very well. And listen, all credit to David Brooks, who had Hutchinson lymphoma. I think it was like stage 1, stage 2. He had cancer. It took him about a year and a half to even get back up to professional level. Seeing him back on and just being able to play again, someone who was so talented and a Welsh player, all credit, just to put that to the side. Yeah, that was the only time I felt we would actually concede. Even the Kluivert situation, because his body position was so off, it was I like, it looked like he was gonna miss because his shoulders and his hips were facing the crowd, they weren't facing the goal. So when he opens his foot to try and like get on the end of it, it's like his body's like oddly positioned to almost chip it rather than like swing it back into the goal. I think Tavernier also, like, that was also one where, like, when he hits it, I was like, oh no, this is gonna creep in, and then like it hits straight, and then like it hits the post. I'm like, oh, don't bounce back up in. But the Kirkes one was the only one I felt like, oh, I think we've just conceded here, because it just looked so similar to what we've done before. But yeah, no, I think we limited Bournemouth pretty well. I mean, obviously the XG says that we were like 2.2. I mean, XG based on the Athletics reporting. We had an XG over 2, and Bournemouth had an XG of 1. Again, XG shouldn't be taken as a game by game stat. It's more of a, what does it look like over time, over a period of 10 games, 15 games, 30 games. It's more of a, long-term predictor rather than a short-term predictor of like a match, like who should have won a match, so to speak. So yeah, I listen. If you want to know a stat on if you're going to win the league or not, if you're generating an XG over 2 a game and you're conceding 1 or less, yeah, about 2.6, Bournemouth 1, and you're conceding an XG of 1 or less, you're going to win the league. That's title winning XG. Like I like Arsenal don't generate that much XG, and their XG conceded is probably I think it's a little bit better than ours, even though we've conceded the same amount of goals, surprisingly, considering, Mikhail, Jose Mourinho, Arteta is, bringing back the old school George Graham, 4 center backs, 2 DMs, like very much pomoing, position of maximum opportunity his way, try to pomo his way to a title. Very traditionally Arsenal, by the way. The idea of Arsenal playing sexy football under Wenger is a blip, unless you go back to Herbert Chapman in the 20s, and that's a whole nother time period of when footy was played. But yeah, I felt very comfortable throughout the game. My only worry during the game was if we didn't get the second. I felt like if we didn't get the second, that was my biggest worry. It was just more if we get if we got Nunez on before Bournemouth got another good chance, I felt we'd get another goal because the game had just opened up by that point. And
it felt like perfect timing, didn't it, for the second goal? It felt like
Absolutely.
It kind of was exactly the right moment to kill the game off, and kind of exactly what we needed at that time.
And we didn't give them a lot of set pieces. Like there was a lot of smart yellows. I mean, listen, I know like people will complain that should McAllister have been sent off for a second yellow. I think it would have been harsh,
very,
harsh. I listen. It's happened before. I would have been like, "Oh, that's harsh," but I could see it. I think Dad's Darren England himself. I think in that situation, I think he knows he could send him off, but also if you look at the challenge itself, like it is like the top of his cleat. He's not going studs into Brooks's thigh. And even though like they complain, it's not like the Bournemouth players aren't like swarming the referee trying to get him sent off and trying to give him a decision. But yeah, no, I listen. I think that what you've seen today is a team that it's the old mantra of being good between 2 boxes and being good in both box penalty areas. Doesn't matter how good you are in the build-up play and being good in between both boxes. If you get into the box and you either, give away a penalty and, don't stop Salah, brilliant Salah curler. And then on the other hand, if you can't score when you're in your opponent's box, you're just not going to win. And I think that's probably where Bournemouth's next step is going to be. Listen, they're probably going to get Europe Conference League. They're so talented. You can see they'd miss Evan Nielsen, but I think what you see from this team, and I know people have like, I'm just going back over through like everyone talking about the game. People are going to complain about Richard Hughes and our lack of transfers for the past, like in the January window, which I thought we wouldn't sign anybody anyways, and everyone thought I was crazy. You can see that they know how to buy players, is my point. This Bournemouth team 2 seasons ago was struggling under Scott Parker, getting pumped 9-0. They Scott Parker brought them up. They sacked him. They brought Gary O'Neill. Everyone thought that Bournemouth went down. O'Neill keeps them up. They relieve Gary O'Neill at the end of the season because they want to go in a different direction. Areola has a terrible start to the season, very much like Frank de Boer. But you can just see that Bournemouth know what they're doing. And I keep saying this, Liverpool know what they're doing. They know how to sign players. We know how to coach them. We know how to build a comfortable team. And you just saw it today with Allison being magnificent when called upon. Robertson, who's been much maligned, I thought was very solid, like did a lot today.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that we don't buy Kirkes and we don't buy a left back, but I think people, there's so much reactionary things to results and performances, which is for understandable. We're all fans. Like we all get emotional. Why wouldn't you? I just think today you just saw that it's just levels above. Listen, Thomas Frank said it best. This is the best team in Europe. This is the best team. This is the best team in the world at the moment, probably. He's like, that's the level, like when we beat them 2-0 at home, it's like, just going and going. And like, we can just do so much so well. Nunez getting 2 late winners at Brentford, for example. The amount of like, look at our bench versus their bench. Look at our first 11 versus their 11. And listen, again, I think that the one signing we need to make from this, if there's one player from this team, I think you saw their class the whole game. It was Hoyson. who were also the number 2, their center back, the 19 who were linked with last summer. Like, he's so good. That's who we should be after in the summer transfer window if Liverpool are signing a center back.
Yeah, I think he's a very good player that I'd like to see potentially over a slightly longer time, just so we got kind of more of a look at him. But I think in terms of what he's putting his output for the Premier League this year, you can't really argue with it for his age, for how he's playing, his profile. He does look like a kind of perfect person to almost step in and kind of be that in the next couple of years, as we do kind of Van Dijk does start to move away from the team potentially in a few years' time. If he signs his contract, then he kind of is a ready-made, if you will, replacement to step in at that point after a few years of being alongside them too. So it could be a good option. You mentioned there about the potentially being the best team in Europe and the best team in the world that people are labeling us at the moment. And I just want to talk about Mo Salah again in terms of goals. As you run out of superlatives almost to give the man in terms of what he does for this team, but in terms of today, got his 20th and 21st league goal of the season. Only the 5th person to score 20 goals across 5 different league seasons. So there's him, Henry, Shearer, Aguero, and Kane. And in terms of that, when he first came to us, to be labelled a one-season wonder in his first season by other teams, and now to have done that over 5 different seasons just shows kind of the mentality of him, the ability of him. And I think 16 goals in his last 16 Premier League games as well. There's just plaudit after plaudit comes one after each other every single time you mention him in a game. And a lot of people might say today he wasn't in the game for a lot of it and he wasn't involved in a lot of it. But if you could get a reel of Mo Salah goals and you go, this is a typical Mo Salah goal, today's is pretty much the epitome of it. He gets the ball on the left-hand side, cuts inside and curls it around to that far top corner. Just want to talk about him for a minute. If you
absolutely. No, absolutely. Listen, I think that's the kind of old style of Mohamed Salah goal, the cutting inside and scoring the Ian Robben type goal. Believe it or not, Robben actually didn't score that goal as many times as people thought, and how Ian Robben was a good player, but I think people in their nostalgia think he was a lot better than what he was. Mo Salah is just different levels at this point. I think it might be controversial. I think he's the best player Liverpool have had in the Premier League era, and he might be one of the best players of all time they've ever had. He's up there with Barnes, Dalglish, Rush. Again, different types of players, different eras. I think it's probably the closest thing we've had to a John Barnes without being able to change his game but still be effective. Granted, Barnes was an exciting winger, and then after his injury, he's more of a midfielder. And again, that's like before my time, so I didn't get to grow up watching John Barnes. I get to see him like through like the old games that LFC TV plays. If I got some time and I'm bored, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go watch an old game, like a classic Liverpool game with Barnes, Beardsley, and Rush playing. He's just so good. This is what a world-class player is, though. I think people have a misunderstanding of what a world-class player should be. A world-class player is not someone who is all action all the time, always involved, always doing the amazing dribbles and turns and pirouettes and stuff. A world-class player is someone that when they need to deliver, they deliver. And that's what Salah has been usually. Again, I think he has it would be a travesty as well. Listen, this is the opinion. Everyone's going to talk about this with the contracts. I kind of want to say my piece, and then I'm going to maybe contradict myself a bit. I think Salah is our best player in the Premier League era by any margin. I think people would disagree with that Suarez was different, but again, different type of player. I think Suarez is what we think a world-class player is, someone who's all action all the time, always involved, always doing something. But Salah is very much the other spectrum of that world-class player where, yeah, like you said, the penalty hasn't had a good game, hasn't really had good touches, hasn't got a shot off, slots it no problem. And he's actually, statistically, he's not the best pen taker, which is also kind of crazy. Like his conversion rate isn't really the best. It's not up there with James Milner, the greatest pen taker of all time. Or obviously, who is Letitia? What's his first name? Letitia. Matt Letitia. He was 100% record. But Salah, he's always there. He's always providing. What's interesting is that before he does that cross, he does that Trivela chip for Alexander-Arnold to try and head into goal, which honestly, Trent does actually really well to make the run and get the header. I think if he actually kind of gets it, one way or the other, maybe it goes in. But listen, he's just so good. He's so good. I think that what people don't appreciate about this Liverpool team and maybe what Slot has done this year is that he's kind of reverted a little bit back to how we used to play under Klopp, where the team is built for Salah, pretty much. People will criticize Darwin Núñez's goals. The reason he's not getting a lot of goals or shot is because it's meant for Salah. Diaz, I think, is about 1-3 right now for the season. Again, hasn't been that effective, but he's playing him to get the best out of Salah. Gakpo, who's been a really good run of form, Gakpo's there to get the best out of Salah because he's a back post runner that Salah can get across to, and if it doesn't work, he gets the rebound. The reason Dominic Szoboszlai, I think, is so important for this team is because he helps get the best out of Mohamed Salah. I would actually argue that we get the best out of Mohamed Salah when we play Darwin Núñez because he just generates so much space for him, and he's always looking. And I think Salah likes playing with him. It's very much like an old school.
Didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
In an interview that he thinks he's the best player to link up with for himself, and is the one he likes playing alongside. So
absolutely, and I think that's also why I'm critical of people who want to just ship Darwin Núñez off, is because we've had him for 3 years. We took him from a left-sided forward who was very much someone who didn't do a lot of the build-up, but did all the scoring, and converting him into an all-action, all-round center forward, which he was not. And I would say it's not really his game for the most part, but we've taken him and molded him into a different role by Klopp and by Slot to do the build-up play, to do the running, to do all these other different things, and to do more traditional center forward goals, setting on a penalty spot, and getting getting goals that way. Very old school fox in the box. But you could just see how much he just gives you. There's just so much to his game. And again, like with Darwin, it's always been a mentality, an emotional situation where can he keep his confidence up as well? And I think, we even saw today that he doesn't drop his head. He's not moaning. He's not Marcus Rashford, getting paid $350,000 at United, at his boyhood club, and just phoning it in at training, which is whatever you want to say about Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's not doing Marcus Rashford things, is all I'm trying to say here. And I think Rashford's a good person, by the way. I'm not slagging off his character. Listen, I'm going to contradict myself here. If we don't give Salah a contract, which is possible, and I think that's more likely than not out of all the three at the moment, I think Verge is the most likely to sign, Trent's the least likely, and Mo's somewhere in between. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Mo Salah still leaves on a free. I know that's controversial saying this for one of our greatest players of all time. And the only reason I'm saying that is because the reason he's so great right now is because the way Slot has made this team to get the best out of Salah. Now, we're seeing Salah's ability in that situation, but if you took Salah and threw him in, say, PSG, would he be the same with Luis Enrique? I think he'd still put up good numbers, but I don't think you would get the same out of him week in and week out. Again, it's all speculative. If you put him in Madrid, would he be the same? Barcelona, like people are talking about Rafinha like he's like the second coming of Ronaldinho or Lionel Messi at times. And listen, I think Rafinha is a good player. I think people are overrating how good he is. I think he's a good player, though. My point being is that if Salah goes, the team is not going to implode overnight in any way, shape, or form. It'll be different. We've won games without Mo Salah. Surprisingly, we've actually played very well historically without Salah on our side, because we make tweaks to how we play, so it's less trying to focus on our right side. But while we still have him here, we just need to celebrate him and enjoy him. And if he stays, great. We still keep one of our best players of all time, even as he he gets a little bit slower. He becomes less and less effective, or becomes more of a creator and less of a scorer over time. But until then, we just have to enjoy it, and just enjoy the fact that, 8 years ago, we thought about signing Julian Brandt, and then we signed Mohamed Salah. And when we signed Mohamed Salah, he was going to be a rotational player with Sadio Mane, at the time, because our front three was Firmino, Mane, and Coutinho. And we moved Mane for Salah.
To play devil's advocate slightly to your argument there, Dan, just in terms of that, where you said Salah might not be the same player without us. Do you think we'd still be the same team without him going forward, potentially, if we had to always? Because I know you said it goes okay sometimes when he doesn't play, but that's over a short period. If it's over a longer term period where we haven't got that person at his level, potentially on the right hand side with his numbers, do you still think we're the same team without him?
I think we'll be a different team. I think we'll be the same in terms of quality overall. listen, Mo Salah has scored. It has been the biggest provider, assister, and goal provider for our side. If he goes, then you would imagine that those goals get spread out a little bit more evenly between the midfield and the attack because there's more emphasis on other players. And I think other players would want to step up for that. Again, hypothesizing in the future, if you're letting Salah go, again, if Salah leaves, I think there's a possibility that maybe one of Diaz, Jota, or Nunez goes. I don't imagine more than two go. If he goes, it could be a reality. Also, they just let Salah go. Chiesa comes in and they don't sell anybody, and they just buy a 10 or a forward or whoever else that they end up bringing in. Will we be the same side? I think we'll be the same side in terms of the way we play and everything else, but I think a Liverpool goal will look a little bit different. And I think we wouldn't stop being one of the best teams. Would we be the best team? I don't know, because that's a world where I don't know who's playing in that side, what we're playing like, and everything else. But I think that people have this image in their head where if Salah goes, we go from 1st to 13th under where United is, or from 1st to 17th where Tottenham is right now. That's just not what's going to happen. Again, I could be wrong, but I would hypothesize that our worst finish in the Premier League era is 8th, and that was with Klopp and with Kenny. And those sides would die, or Dylan. I don't know if you remember those teams.
Absolutely, I do. Yeah, completely, I do.
And listen,
the less said about some of those teams, the better. To be honest with you, some of the people that we did have playing. So,
listen, that Kenny side before they brought Rodgers in was not good. And listen, I know people feel some type of way about how Kenny was, shunted out by the ownership at the time, but they had a clear idea of what they wanted to do going forward, and I think they've always stuck to that. And I think Kenny did what he needed to do as well. What player coaching will? Listen, Derek. Here's the thing. I don't know if Mo Salah wants to be a coach. I don't know if you've ever coached before, Derek. It's not one for the impatient or the talented, I would say, because part of being a coach is accepting that the people the players you're coaching cannot do the things that you may not be able to do the things that you want them to do. So you try and get them to do the things you want to do as well. Listen, I'm not saying that they should move on Salah. I actually think that it's much easier to keep him than move him on. But again, if he moves on, all that matters is what you do next. And that's always the issue. Great players have left Liverpool before. All of our greats have left, gone on to other things. And Liverpool are still around. We're not, believe it or not, we're not Manchester United or Arsenal, where if you lose your greatest players, you just sink into obscurity. United have two great managers in their life, Matt Bubsby and Alex Ferguson. Everything else outside of that time period, they're a cup team, and that's pretty much it. Maybe they win a league once in a while, but they've had two great managers. That's it. Arsenal had, without Henry, without Vieira, without that combination of George Graham's tough defensive coaching and Wenger's combination of progressive play, they're just not the same team. And even listen, Arteta's won one FA Cup. He's buying defensive midfielders. They're buying Martin Zubimendi in the summer. They're trying to buy Ollie Watkins, who's an older striker in the winter. They were, this is not. We have this perception because it's our team that if Salah goes, it's the end of Liverpool. It's not. But that doesn't mean I won't be sad. And it doesn't mean that people won't be upset. They will be upset because we always want the best players to play for us. But it's not going to be the end of the world. And the reason I'm saying that is so we enjoy him now. So we stop focusing more. So we stop focus on the anxiety of what happens when Mo goes and think more of Mo's here now. Let's enjoy him. And then what happens.
Yeah, no, we definitely should enjoy these types of performances where he's just winning his games for like this today. Those two goals, I know one's a penalty, but the second goal is exactly the type of goal we've seen year in, year out from Mo the whole time he's been with us. And like you said, Liverpool would survive with that, no matter what happens with any of the contracts. But today, for me, is exactly why I just give the man his contract, just let him get it signed. Because for me, next season, I think it just opens up a bit of a can of worms of, can we keep hold of the bigger players? Can we not? It just starts conversations that we don't really need to see around when we've got this massive run towards a title. And I'd rather it kind of get sorted, but we don't know what's going to happen with that, do we? Like you say, it's all just hypothesizing of what we think might happen or what might go on. So yeah, like you said, enjoy him while we're here, and hopefully the contract gets signed and we get to keep him for longer. That's all I want to see.
Absolutely.
A couple of things just on today's game as well, just to go back on. I know we talked about Mo, but is there anyone else really that you'd put forward as kind of that impressed you today, or kind of man of match performances from anyone else? I know Mo will probably get the plaudits because of the 2 goals, but anyone else you'd put up there as well?
I think Connor Bradley had another solid game when he came on.
Yeah,
that was Semenyo very well. Again, Semenyo by that point was tired. I think you see why they are probably willing to let Trent go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe 12 months ago, I was very adamant that you couldn't let Trent go because he was the most unique. Now I'm looking at it from a situation of actually the kid's Bradley's solid. I don't think he'll ever be, you know, Alexander Arnold's levels of just otherworldly, but he's a solid right back. If Connor Bradley's career is Steve Finnan, but slightly better or slightly faster, I think that's perfectly fine for this team. Believe it or not, you don't need world-class right backs and left backs to win the league. You just need good. You need solid, consistent good. Gives you both defense and offense. You know, the fact we had Robinson and Trent is more of an anomaly than anything else. You believe it or not, you don't need to spend 60 million on right backs and left backs to have good ones. And that's actually why I want to see like Chambers or back, most likely Chambers in the summer if they decide to keep them, or do they go into the market. I think Bradley was good. I think Konate was solid. I think it wasn't his best game. Allison was brilliant. I think that was I think a worry people have had is that has Allison dropped off a level?
Yeah.
I think you see today that it's just more that he just getting back into rhythm. I think we forget how stop-start Allison has been the past 2 seasons, getting injured, being out, then trying to come back in. When if you think back to our last series title run, he was pretty much playing almost every game. So as long as Allison gets now to the end of the season, injury free, I think we're locked in for some exciting times. Listen, you can't talk about this game and you can't look at this team, talk about Liverpool without talking about how good Ryan Gravenberch is. And listen, I know people, I think people, there's a thing where people have, and it's going back to 2018 or 2017. People always argued that we should be buying an attacking midfielder. Why aren't we buying an attacking midfielder? Philip Coutinho's gone. Why aren't we buying an attacking midfielder? And people said that while we were 98 points, 1 point off a title, won the Champions League, we won the Club World Cup, won the league. People were saying, where's our attacking midfielder? Now it's the DM. It's the mythical 6, so to speak, I would say. If you watch Ryan Gravenberch today, there's no midfielder out there on the market that can do what he does in terms of ball carrying, dribbling, defensive awareness, tackles, interceptions. I think today what you've seen is that you've seen a player who has all of the abilities of a box-to-box player that has been played further forward by Klopp and by Bayern Munich, but they didn't trust as a defensive midfielder. Now he's playing a double pivot, which what he played at Ajax, and you're just seeing a player just thrive who has all the things you want from an all-around midfielder who can do everything. He's not. This is why I've always pushed back against this idea of Liverpool need to buy a 6 or defensive profiles. Some people have argued. It's what type of midfielder are you looking for? Because today's game, Gravenberch gives you everything. The only thing he didn't do was have a good shot. That left-footed shot that he skies a bit, but it's on his weaker foot, so we can forgive him. But you get everything from him. He's covering the right area. He's winning. He's turning the ball. He doesn't lose the ball. He's dead Dutch, as you would say. He has the ability of Genie to turn and win the ball, not lose it. He has the passing range of Fabinho or any the midfielder we've had in the past. And he has that defensive awareness and that ability to be in a tackle for, any midfielder we've had before. And listen, like people will say, we rode a luck today. Again, I agree with all of this, but you can just see that upon this grav, I will build my Burke, is all I'm going to say. Upon this grav, I will build my Burke. And you can listen, I will come up with great puns for everyone. He's the platform, that spine of Alisson, Van Dijk, Grav, Salah. That is the spine of this team at the moment. If Van Dijk goes or Salah goes, you have to replace it. But at this moment in time, that is the spine that's carrying us. And yeah, Curtis Jones again coming on, his ability to move. I think you also saw Jones when he was back to goal with Osinu. I think he gets away with one there a bit. I do think it's borderline a foul. I've seen those given before. So again, I've seen those not given. But I think you just see in this team just how good, just how good they are. Even McAllister, who I thought didn't have his best game, is just so solid. They can just do everything. As my point, they can win the ball, they can shoot it, they can carry it, they can dribble, they get a tactical foul. Their awareness of the game is just so good that even if they're not having the best passing game or scoring worldies, you know, the floor, the performance floor isn't below a 7. You know, it's or a 6.5 or whatever you want to say the floor is. The floor is a 7. That old James Milner thing of you're always getting a 7 most of the time, except for some bad performances. But that floor is just so solid, and we can't. There is no player out in the market right now that is as good as Ryan Gravenberch that isn't possibly named like Rodri, who's injured, Caicedo, who is I think a bit more limited but is a solid player, and maybe Aurelien Tchouameni are probably the only ones you think of. But Tchouameni's been playing at center back. Maybe fit Federico Valverde is probably the closest one, but again, I'd say he's more of an all-action player. There's just no one that can do what Ryan is doing at the moment for this team in the toughest league in the world, by the way.
Yeah, and I think it's almost easy for people to kind of use that we need a 6 because he doesn't look like that big combative number 6 that you'd expect to just be tackle after tackle after tackle. But like you touched on, it's everything else he brings to the game. He's just so silky in there, composed, moves the ball around. Those little turns that he's now almost got as like his own move already when it gets played into him from the centre halves, and he's already gone past whoever's their 8 or their 10. And he might not be, like people keep mentioning names like Baliba and stuff like that. He's not the big unit you expect almost as a 6 that people seem to want as that defensive midfielder. But he brings so much more to the game than that. And I saw in our group chat before the game, there was messages flying around about Tielemans and Caicedo ahead of him this season and kind of stuff like that. And for me, he has been by far the best midfielder in the league this season. I don't even think it's close in my opinion of some of the midfielders that are near him. So you saw that today, exactly like you mentioned. He carried us at times through the midfield. And
listen, I'm gonna give you a simple thing. We bought Ryan Gravenberch for 35 million.
Yeah.
Chelsea bought Caicedo for 115, I think it was at the end. When we bid, I think 112, 115 is what they paid it for by the end. That's 4 Ryan Gravenberchs, more or less.
Well, I know we didn't expect him to turn into this player this season. No one really knew that was going to come, but it has. So
listen, I never lost faith. I'm just saying this right now. I've always stressed that Ryan Gravenberch could be any midfielder you could have. That's why they bought him, because he could become anything. And he's the player that he was in and out under Klopp, but every time he played, I always think he showed his ability. And I think under Slot, yeah, exactly. And I think that. And again, I keep stressing this. Listen, he hasn't played below a 7 this season. And people have even said, like, oh, he hasn't played great today. It's like, oh, because he was so great at the beginning of the season. I think we've just become eye blind to just how good he is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, people will say he's not the combative Caicedo or Baliba, like that's tackling and winning the ball and playing it on. He's not always snuffing out danger or like an N'Golo Kante in that way. That very traditional win the ball passive 5 yards, so to speak, what we kind of had Endo do for a bit. But he doesn't have to be, because he's just in the right positions. And I think that people underestimate the positional play that you have to have as a midfielder, that 90% of what you are doing is not passing or tackling, it's getting into the position you need to be in. It's reading the game, being in that position. And I think he just reads the game so well, and that cannot be underestimated. Yeah, it's just most players that can read the game well don't always make it, because physicality, injuries, just doesn't work out for them. But Grav has that tactical awareness, and he has the ability and he has the body too. Like he's 6'3", I think 6'3", 1.9. I think he's a little bit shorter than Van Dijk, but he's not much. It's the perfect combination that you want as a football fan or a manager, because you could look at Gravenberg and said, yeah, he can play football. Like your eyes, this is why I get so upset with people sometimes when watching games. It's like, I can see with my eyes that he can play. It's just, where do we play him? And I think now you can just watch and you can just see, yeah, he knows what he's doing. It goes back to the Genie problem, where people would criticize that Genie didn't do anything, and yet all he would do for 90 minutes in that title-winning season is just occupy space. I just think now Grav, because of the way we play and the way our team is set up, you just see more of him, because that's his job, is to fill in space and to be combative, to win the ball, to pass the ball, and to move it.
Yeah. Just on a couple more things from today, then, just from the game. Obviously, around, what was it, 55, 65 minutes, things got a bit sloppy. We picked up a few yellow cards, one after each other, and it looked like, obviously, Maka people are mentioning that he could have been sent off. We mentioned it earlier on that it would have been, for both of us, really soft. But when you combine, I'm seeing things on social media. I'm guessing it's mainly Arsenal fans who are saying these types of things. But the soft penalty, the Maka red card, it's all kind of going towards us again. I don't see anything in it myself. I think it wasn't too bad of a game where there was that much in it in terms of bite or kind of anything that the referee had to get on top on. For me, I didn't think it was any of that type of game. But from the people that came on after that period, how do you feel we kind of managed the game from there? And people like Elliott, for example, do you feel like he could have got on instead of Jones, with Jones just coming back from injury, or were you kind of happy with Jones coming on instead? What are your kind of thoughts of kind of the last half an hour of the game?
Oh yeah, listen, I think had the game been done and dusted by then, by the time Jones comes on, I think maybe you could make an argument for Harvey. I think with how intense Bournemouth were running, I think you can see why he didn't put Elliott on, because Bournemouth is so good at setting traps that they would have just been trying to trap Elliott on the ball, especially because every time they came on, they were into him. Like Jones, like they were very much not trying to give him time. It was man on, stick into him. You know, very, very, very specific play, tactical coaching by Iraola. Again, very smart, and something that I think if anybody in here is watching this and watch this in the future or the past, you know, if you want to be a time traveler, you know, not all of us can be cool like you. If you want to learn how to coach a high pressing, aggressive team, watch Iraola's Bournemouth. Watch him when he was at Real Valladolid as well. I have to remember how to say off the top of my head, because it's very much, these are the 3-4 players. When the ball tries to go in, you go in, you win it, you pounce, you set those traps, you lure them in, you make them think they have space. The pass goes, you run and you trap them. I think Jones was the most reasonable option at the time, with Maka going off. And I think Jones just plays better as a double pivot than as a 10. It's not because he can't play as a 10. It's just that I think he's much better playing deeper in possession, because he gives you very similar things. He can turn, he can hold the ball, and he can spin. I think Endo coming on too, who did Endo come on for? Dom? Was it Dominic? No, Salah. He was Salah. Yeah. Yep, that's right. I think that Slot made the right decisions. You know, I think in that position, you don't need Harvey Elliott to win the game. If it was 0-0, yeah, throw Harvey on.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's very much game state management. And I think Harvey Elliott knows that too. And I think we need to, I think we as fans want to see more of Harvey, because we think he's just going to like leave. But Harvey has always been willing to fight for his place from Klopp and from everybody else. And I think Slot obviously rates him. But I think Harvey also understands that Slot's trying to win the game. And I think Harvey wants to win the league and the Champions League more than he wants game time. I think he wants to feel like
the 2 games we've got coming up, he's likely to play pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
So we got the Cup game, and then we got the FA Cup game. So he's going to play 90 probably against Plymouth. He'll probably play a part against Tottenham. So he'll still have games.
Absolutely. And listen, like Harvey's been an important part of how we transition the team from, as Klopp said, Liverpool 1.0 to 2.0. I think he's been an important part of that. Whether or not he stays an important part under Slot is up to him and Slot and Hughes. That's a decision all three would make. I think Harvey's perfectly willing to stay and fight for his place. I think Hughes and Slot are very willing to keep Harvey. I don't think, even if someone comes in with like a 60 million bid, they're probably going to be like, Harvey wants to say, we'll keep them. You know, I think we have this idea that, you know, we're just going to sell players because we get bids in. We don't sell players unless they want to move. Believe it or not, you know, and I think this is something people have missed out on from Liverpool's cultural approach, is that we don't flog players off like for money. Like it's a thing of if the big comes in and they want to go, we will let you go. But they're very willing to let you stay if you are not being an issue in the locker room. You know, going back to Psycho Benteke. I think all the subs were spot on. I think that it was interesting. He brought Gakpo off and moved Diaz out to the wing. I think what Slot has hit on is that his left wing is either going to be Gakpo and Diaz. And if it's going to be Gakpo, then your striker is going to be probably Nunez. And listen, I know we already talked about him again, but just to bring it on, I thought Darwin was absolutely what you want from a center forward. Like when he comes on, he does everything. He wins. Like he plays a part in the build up. He stretches Bournemouth. He keeps them on their toes. He doesn't let them build up ahead of steam. Even when they get the shot off and could have had that goal. Slot made those changes, I think, at the perfect time to keep Bournemouth honest and not giving them the opportunity to overcommit without the fear of going 3-0 down. So it was, listen, I think he made the right subs. I only think Harvey would have come on if it was 0-0. It is kind of frustrating that Chiesa didn't travel, but he had played 90 at PSV, his first real 90, so I can understand that Slot's very much thinking Chiesa is going to get Plymouth Argyle or Tottenham or some combination of both, and they're just going to build up his fitness, I'm imagining, up until the derby. And that's really what this game is prepping us for. It's to get us into the point where we have the Goodison derby, David Moyes, classic. The Everton are pretty much safe from relegation at this point, sadly. I know, to everyone's disappointment. Can't have the triple crown of Champions League, league title, and Everton get relegated. Listen, last year we played terrible at Goodison Park. I think that was mostly because our tank was empty, our race was run. They just didn't have it in them. I think they tried. I don't think it's an issue of effort. I think by that point they would just expended so much energy and just the sharpness and the fitness wasn't there that we just ran out of steam by the end. I think this Goodison derby is going to be interesting. It's going to be tough. Everton are crap though, so as long as we play like we said today at Bournemouth, if we come in and we know it's going to be a fight and we're prepared to fight, I think we'll beat Everton, 2-0, because Pickford's crap as a goalkeeper, his tiny arms.
Yeah, hopefully when it comes to the derby in a couple of weeks' time, we do. And just touching on the derby coming up as well, obviously with us winning today, being 9 points clear, and then Arsenal playing tomorrow with a massive game now for them against City. If City were to take anything from them tomorrow and we were to win the derby, how much pressure is that then on Arsenal, do you think? Because being 10 or 12 points behind us, a lot of people, I know, for me, I'm one of them. I kind of go, I'm waiting till we're 9 points clear with 2 games left. That's when I'll say the title's won.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I won't kind of get ahead of myself. But do you think that train almost takes off then when people go, if that happens, they lose tomorrow, we win the derby, 12 points by then? Do you think people go, it's already Liverpool's, or what do you think? I
think I don't remember the last time a team has come back from that deficit. They didn't have games in hand. If people will bring up the 21-22 season, we were, I think, 15 or 12 behind City, but we had like 3 games in hand at one point, or 4. And actually, if you had played all the games, we would have been, I think, 4 or 5, and we actually kept really tight with City the whole time once we had won our games in hand. In that title winning season, it's not that City we just ran out of games. Like if we had 1 or 2 more games, we probably would have won it, because City had very much ran out of steam and we were full steam ahead. I think if Arsenal lose tomorrow, and we win the derby, I think they're going to check out. Yeah, I think you could argue, especially with them not bringing in any fresh legs, and you can just tell right now their heads are gone on social media, and Arteta's head's a bit gone. Edu's already left. They don't have a sporting director. It's the Arteta show. I think they might look to, we're just going to focus on the Champions League. And if something happens in the league, we'll be there. And I mean, obviously, I don't think Liverpool will think that. And, I know people are afraid of, getting too optimistic before it's won, which is, like they say, it's the hope that kills you. Listen, I dare to hope, because I thought when we won the league under COVID, this would be the last time I see a league title in my lifetime. I thought that I honestly thought at one point this might be the greatest Liverpool team I ever see, and I may not see another great one in my lifetime. I was wrong. And if I can be wrong about that, I think it's perfectly fine to give into hope. Like, there's nothing. I think people are just afraid of being disappointed because we've lived with so much disappointment. United overcame a 12-point deficit. Hey, listen, thank you for the history lesson. I was trying to remember if that was actually 12 points at the time. Listen, I don't think we're going to have a Kevin Keegan moment, and this Arsenal side are not United in the 90s when they had, Andy Cole. I think Ferdinand was still at Newcastle at the time, or did they buy him in that summer? That United side at the time was very much the up-and-coming force, and that Newcastle side at the time was very much the peak of that era of Newcastle in the mid-90s under Keegan. Listen, Slot's a better manager than Keegan. We don't have the issues that Newcastle United team. That Newcastle United team was very much an old school. If anybody has never seen this, they were very much a team that either won 5-0 or lost 4-3. So that was pretty much that Newcastle side. The old classic. Like, I love it if we beat him. Love it. Classic is like we have a manager like that talks about Stuart Pearce. I think this when Stuart Pearce was actually the manager of Forest or City. I'm getting just drawn to nostalgia.
Just being digressed slightly.
I know. Listen. I'm just being drawn into that past because I remember going back and watching those games from that era because it was just when I was first getting into footy. In the 2000s, 2010s, I went back and watched it. Listen, I don't think Arsenal have it in them. They just don't have. You want to say the sauce, the aura. I just don't think they have the mentality. I think by the time they had beat Newcastle, Ferguson had won a title. I think by that point, by the mid 90s, they had already won silverware. They hadn't won the European Cup yet, but they had already had silverware pedigree, so they knew what it was like to win. This Arsenal side don't have that. And listen, I agree with you, Dylan. It's not over till it's over. But if we win and we get that, I think it's okay to be like, it's just, we can start believing. We can start singing, now you're going to believe us.
I want to enjoy it. I want to jump on the quadruple train like Steve and everyone else in the delusion train that they have in the group chat. But for me, I can never. I've been hurt too many times these last few years to jump on it too much and go straight away. We're going to win it. But I think if City were to get a result there tomorrow, even a draw, I think for City tomorrow is a massive result still in terms of what it does to Arsenal and where it leaves them. I think it's pretty much must win for Arsenal tomorrow if they kind of want to keep up where they are. And then from there, you never know if we are to win the derby, kind of push on from there and see where it leaves us after that. But who could say? I want to enjoy it, but I equally want to hold myself back still.
No, absolutely. Listen, I know we've all been hurt. We lived to this point before. This isn't the same story. This is very much closer to 1920 than it is to 21-22 when we had to fight back, or 18-19 when we had to be neck and neck, and we were 5 points and then 7 points and then dropped. I mean, honestly, that 18-19 game, what changed was that City away game where we lost 2-1 at Leroy Sané goal. And listen, that was one of the best games of all time. And the City scored that goal against the run of play. Arsenal don't have a Leroy Sané. Like, wherever this run of form they're going to have, this magnificent run of form and our terrible run of form is going to have, I just don't see it happening. Could it happen? Absolutely. It's football. Things change on time. Things always change. But I think we should give ourselves as Liverpool fans hope. I think we can have hope in this side, in this team. This is, if there's anything we should have learned from Klopp deciding to leave, and Edwards coming back and Hughes coming in and Slot coming in, and the players have stayed. Granted, they haven't signed their contracts. Everyone looked around and said, I'm just going to say what Soboslai said last year when he first came in. Someone who came from Leipzig, they have not won a league. They have a whole thing as well. Dom came from Salzburg and he came from Hungary. He's captain of Hungary. He came in, looked around and said, yeah, we can win the league. This was last year. And granted, if things broke a different way, maybe we do get a league title by the end. If things just work out a different way, injuries or everything else. Hey, listen, Derek, again, games in hand. That's the other thing too. Games in hand by the end. We actually were never 9 points clear in the sense of on equal footing at one point. I think we were like 5 or 6. And that's why those two results end up killing that season. Listen, Dominic Szoboszlai walked in this team last year and he said, we can win the league. That's what he said. And we didn't. We ran out of steam, injuries, everything else. Everyone in this side right now, they're all looking at each other and they're like, yeah, we can win the league. And I think that the players know they can do it and they have the confidence. I think Arsenal are weighed down by expectation and self-doubt. They've taught themselves a bit. I think this Liverpool side, they've been through the ringer. They know what they're capable of, and they know what each other's capable of. So if they can believe they can win the league, we should believe it as well.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, the belief's there. The players believe. Hopefully, fans keep believing we can push on. 9 points today. Hopefully, it stays as 9 points after the City go tomorrow and beat Arsenal, and we'll see where we are after the derby from there. Good. Anything else you want to talk through, Dan? Otherwise, we've come to an hour, so I'm quite happy if you want to finish off. I know you're joining the stream later on as well.
Yeah, no, listen, I think so Dylan, when how many points which match day are you going to start singing? Is the top coming off? When are you going to take the top off and spin it around?
We'll as soon as it's guaranteed is when I'll absolutely jump into it. I want to enjoy it as much as I can and get involved in it, but yeah.
Are you going to take the line into Anfield and go join the party?
Yeah, I'm going up on Thursday as well. When me and my lad are going up for the game on Thursday, so hopefully that goes well. And actually, when we won it last time, my sister-in-law lived literally across the road from the Kop at that point, so I was actually there when they won it, but we weren't allowed to celebrate. So we were.
You didn't go outside. You didn't go outside.
People were social distance celebrating, but we couldn't actually celebrate properly.
Yeah,
so let's hope we can get there and do it properly this time.
Hey, listen. Like, just all that matters right now is like, when does the tops come off? That's all that matters. And once we decide when the tops come off, that's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. No matter what happens with Spurs, the FA Cup, or even the Champions League. As Bill Shankly said, the league should be a bread and butter. I can't do a Scottish accent. I apologize for that. I can't really do his accent because it's so unique. It's so 60s Glastonbury. And listen, that's all I'm just gonna say. Like, maybe we're in a Paisley era. Maybe we're back to having our Bob Paisley era where we just win things. We just win shiny things, and Liverpool are just good. So, enjoy it, Dylan.
Good. Right, I'm going to finish it off there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Over 3,500 joined us live there. Thank you all for joining, and make sure you like and subscribe again, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on future content. Dan will be jumping into another stream, I think, in about just over an hour or so. Dan, is it at 7:30?
Yeah, it's 7:30. Always 7:30. Yeah, they're getting all the dad this week.
And then tune in for the rest of the week as we build up towards Thursday night against Tottenham as well, and every night 7:30. All good. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. 3 points for the Reds, 9 points clear. Let's hope it stays like that. Thanks, everyone. Good night.